They say love knows no bounds, that it transcends time, age, and circumstance. But for Judge Eleanor Marks, love didn't conquer all. It lasted a mere 18 hours before it was shattered by violence, leaving behind a crime scene that sent shockwaves through Miami's legal community. Eleanor wasn't just any woman. She was a respected judge, known for her sharp intellect and unwavering dedication to justice. Her sudden and unexpected marriage to a man nearly 3 decades younger turned heads, raising both curiosity and concern. But no one, least of all Eleanor herself, could have predicted how her wedding night would end. Just 18 hours after exchanging vows in a quiet, intimate ceremony, Eleanor was found dead in her luxury hotel suite. A single gunshot wound to the chest. No clear signs of struggle. No forced entry. The only other person in the room? Her brand new husband, Daniel Reeves. Was this a devastating crime of passion fueled by jealousy and hidden motives? A meticulously planned murder, orchestrated for financial gain? Or could there be something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Secrets from Eleanor's courtroom past that finally caught up to her? Theories ran wild as investigators unraveled the details. The evidence was puzzling, the timeline suspicious, and the circumstances too coincidental to ignore. Who pulled the trigger? And more importantly, why? Tonight, we take you deep into a case filled with mystery, betrayal, and unanswered questions. Stay with us as we piece together the shocking final hours of Judge Eleanor Marks, a woman who thought she was stepping into a new chapter of love, only to meet an untimely and gruesome end. Eleanor Marks was no ordinary woman. At 58, she had built a formidable reputation as one of Miami's toughest and most principled judges. With over 3 decades on the bench, she had presided over some of the city's most high-profile cases: organized crime, corruption, and brutal homicides. Her rulings were firm, her judgments swift, and her reputation ironclad. She was the kind of judge who struck fear into criminals and commanded the respect of even the most hardened defense attorneys. Colleagues described her as brilliant, meticulous, and utterly uncompromising. If you were guilty, you didn't want to see Judge Marks behind a bench. She had a way of cutting through deception like a scalpel, exposing lies with a single glance. In the courtroom, she was a force to be reckoned with, an unshakable pillar of justice in a city riddled with crime. But outside the courthouse, Eleanor had a secret that would ultimately cost her everything. She had fallen, hard and fast, for a man nearly 3 decades her junior. His name was Daniel Reeves. A former law student who had abandoned his legal ambitions, Daniel had traded textbooks for tequila, working as a bartender at one of Miami's upscale lounges. He was young, charismatic, and charming in a way that made people feel instantly at ease. But beneath the effortless charm, there was something else, something darker. According to those who knew him, Daniel had a hunger for success, a relentless drive that sometimes bordered on obsession. He had once dreamed of becoming a lawyer, even passing the bar exam, but after a series of personal and financial setbacks, he had abandoned that path. Instead, he found another way to stay close to wealth and power, by charming his way into Miami's elite social circles. And when he met Eleanor Marks, he saw an opportunity he couldn't resist. Their relationship raised eyebrows from the start. To Eleanor's closest friends, it was baffling. She was a woman of discipline and intellect, a master of logic. Daniel, on the other hand, was a free spirit, a man who had never quite found his footing. So why? They wondered, was she so drawn to him? Was it his energy, his youth? Or was there something else, something she saw in him that no one else could? The romance moved at a dizzying pace. Within weeks of meeting, they were inseparable. Lavish dinners, late-night drives along the Miami coastline, whispered conversations in dimly lit bars. To the outside world, it seemed like an unlikely but passionate love affair. But behind closed doors, cracks were already beginning to form. Friends noticed Eleanor was drinking more, that she seemed distracted, even anxious. Was it wedding jitters? Or did she sense something was off? Then, just 6 weeks after their first meeting, Eleanor shocked everyone. She and Daniel eloped. A private beachfront ceremony. No guests. No prenup. It was the kind of decision that seemed completely out of character for a woman who planned everything with precision. But love, as they say, makes people do strange things. And just 18 hours later, she was dead. Their relationship was a whirlwind, intense, passionate, and to many in Eleanor's inner circle, deeply unsettling. Friends and colleagues whispered about the speed of it all, the secrecy, the way Eleanor, a woman known for caution and meticulous planning, seemed to throw all logic aside. But she didn't care. She was in love. And love, she believed, was worth the risk. Exactly 6 weeks after their first meeting, Judge Eleanor Marks and Daniel Reeves stood barefoot on a private Miami beach, exchanging vows under the glow of a setting sun. There were no guests, no witnesses, no prenup, just Eleanor, Daniel, and the promise of a future together. But that future never came. Just 18 hours later, she was dead. At 3:14 a.m., a 911 call shattered the stillness of the night. The caller? Daniel Reeves. His voice was frantic, shaking with what sounded like panic. Minutes later, police arrived at the couple's luxury suite at the Ritz-Carlton. What they found was chilling. Eleanor Marks, the woman who had sentenced criminals, upheld the law, and fought for justice, lay motionless on the hotel room floor. A single gunshot wound to the chest, blood pooling beneath her. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds, and most disturbingly, no murder weapon in sight. Daniel Reeves sat on the edge of the bed, his hands shaking, his designer shirt stained with Eleanor's blood. His story? He claimed he had been asleep when he heard the shot, that he woke to find Eleanor on the ground, unresponsive, that he had no idea what had happened. But investigators weren't convinced. For one, how did a gunshot go off in a hotel room without waking Daniel until it was too late? And then there was the missing weapon. How does a gun vanish from a locked room? Officers searched every inch of the suite, the bathroom, the balcony, under the furniture. Nothing. It was as if the gun had disappeared into thin air. Then came another puzzle. Security footage from the hotel's hallway showed no one entering or leaving the suite between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. If no one else had been there, then who pulled the trigger? And just as investigators began piecing together the timeline, they uncovered something even more disturbing. Less than 24 hours before her death, Eleanor had made a major financial move, one that raised serious questions about motive. She had officially updated her will. The primary beneficiary? Daniel Reeves. Was this a tragic accident, a crime of passion, or had Daniel planned this from the start, turning a whirlwind romance into a calculated murder plot? As the investigation unfolded, shocking secrets began to surface. Secrets that would expose a web of deception, manipulation, and betrayal that no one saw coming. A shocking twist? The suite security footage showed no one entering or leaving between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. If that was true, was Daniel lying? Or was there another explanation? The Miami PD wasted no time launching a full-scale investigation. And almost immediately, Daniel's story started to fall apart. He told detectives Eleanor had been depressed, that she may have taken her own life, that she had been drinking heavily that evening. But forensic evidence painted a different picture. The gunshot wound told its own story. The bullet's downward trajectory made self-infliction nearly impossible. A woman of Eleanor's height and stature couldn't have held the gun at that angle to shoot herself. And then there was the missing murder weapon, a gunshot without a gun, an anomaly that only deepened the mystery. Detectives combed through every inch of the hotel suite. They checked under furniture, behind curtains, in the bathroom vents. They even examined the balcony, theorizing that the gun could have been tossed into the darkness below. Nothing. They searched the hallways, the stairwells, and even the hotel's trash chutes. Still nothing. But then a breakthrough. When detectives reviewed the hotel's security logs, something chilling emerged. At exactly 2:57 a.m., just minutes before the 911 call, a maintenance door on the 15th floor was accessed. The person who entered? None other than Daniel Reeves. And what was on the 15th floor? A garbage incinerator. Investigators now had a working theory. Daniel had disposed of the murder weapon in the incinerator, erasing crucial evidence before making his panicked 911 call. But there was one problem. If the gun had been burned beyond recognition, how could they prove it? Forensic specialists scoured the incinerator chamber, sifting through layers of charred debris. And after hours of searching, they found it, a single melted bullet fragment. Ballistics testing later confirmed it was a match for Eleanor's wound. The murder weapon had indeed been destroyed. But there was more. Detectives uncovered a shocking financial motive. Just 24 hours before her death, Eleanor had updated her will, making Daniel Reeves the sole beneficiary of her multi-million-dollar estate. Bank statements revealed that Daniel was drowning in debt. Gambling losses, unpaid loans, maxed-out credit cards. His charming exterior masked a desperate man on the brink of financial ruin. Was this marriage truly about love? Or was it a deadly scheme? Investigators weren't done. They dug into Daniel's past and found something chilling. This wasn't the first time he had been involved with an older, wealthy woman. And it wasn't the first time one of his partners had died under suspicious circumstances. 8 years earlier, in Chicago, Daniel had been romantically involved with a 52-year-old businesswoman named Linda Harper. Linda was found dead in her apartment, an apparent fall down a flight of stairs. Daniel had been present that night, but her death was ruled accidental. At the time, there was no evidence linking him to foul play. But now, investigators began to wonder if history had repeated itself. With mounting evidence, detectives confronted Daniel, and that's when his story changed. Again, now, he claimed that Eleanor had been attacked by an intruder, that he had woken up to find her already shot. But security footage and keycard logs disproved this theory. No one had entered or exited the suite. The walls were closing in, and Daniel knew it. On the morning of his scheduled police interview, Daniel Reeves tried to flee, but authorities caught up with him at Miami International Airport. He had purchased a one-way ticket to Brazil, a country that doesn't extradite its citizens back to the U.S. It was the final red flag. Daniel Reeves was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But even with his arrest, one question lingered. Did Daniel act alone? Or was there someone else involved? As the trial date approached, shocking new revelations would emerge, secrets that would leave the courtroom in stunned silence. The case went to trial in record time. Prosecutors argued that Daniel had everything to gain and nothing to lose. Just one day before Eleanor's death, she had revised her will, naming him the sole beneficiary of her $5 million estate. A man drowning in debt suddenly stood to inherit a fortune. It was, they claimed, a clear case of premeditated murder. But Daniel's defense team had a wild card. They painted an entirely different picture, one where Daniel wasn't a cold-blooded killer, but an innocent man caught in something much bigger. Their claim? Eleanor was being blackmailed by someone in her professional life. That she had powerful enemies, people who might have wanted her silenced. Could it be that someone else wanted her dead? And if so, who? Then came the most damning piece of evidence. A housekeeper at the Ritz-Carlton took the stand. She testified that at 3 a.m., just minutes before the 911 call, she saw Daniel pacing the hallway outside the suite. His hands were shaking, his face pale, and then, she recounted, she heard him muttering to himself. Her exact words, a collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. If the housekeeper's account was true, it shattered Daniel's alibi. He had claimed to be asleep, but if he was in the hallway, whispering those chilling words, then he had already known Eleanor was dead, before he ever called 911. The prosecution hammered this point home. If Daniel was innocent, why had he accessed the maintenance door to the incinerator? Why was the murder weapon never recovered? Why had he purchased a one-way ticket to Brazil? Each question tightened the noose around him. But then, another twist. The defense introduced a shocking theory. What if Eleanor had planned to fake her own death? They presented emails allegedly written by Eleanor days before her murder, hinting that she was in danger, that she needed to disappear, that, in her words, people are watching me. The defense suggested that Eleanor's enemies, whoever they were, had found out about her plan and made sure she never got the chance. The courtroom was divided. Was Daniel a manipulative gold digger who executed the perfect crime? Or was he simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated. For 6 tense hours, they weighed the evidence. The financial motive, the missing murder weapon, the security footage, the witness testimony, and finally, they reached a verdict. The judge asked Daniel to stand. The courtroom fell silent. And then, but was justice truly served? Even after the trial, unanswered questions remained. Who was blackmailing Eleanor? Was there another player involved? Someone who ensured she never lived to tell the truth? And perhaps the biggest mystery of all, if Daniel didn't pull the trigger, who did? Let us know what you think in the comments. Was Daniel Reeves guilty? Or was this a far more complex conspiracy than anyone ever imagined? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking true crime stories, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. In the end, the jury took just 5 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Daniel Reeves showed no emotion as the sentence was read aloud. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. For the prosecution, it was a victory. For Eleanor's grieving friends and colleagues, it was justice. But was it the full story? Even as Daniel was led away in handcuffs, unanswered questions lingered. Did Daniel truly act alone? If Eleanor was being blackmailed, who was behind it? And why was she so afraid in the days leading up to her death? Investigators never found proof of the alleged extortion. The emails the defense presented were real, but the sender was never identified. Could there have been another hand in this tragedy, pulling the strings from the shadows? And what about the past? Linda Harper's death in Chicago, the accidental fall that killed Daniel's former girlfriend. Was that truly an accident? Or was it another calculated move, another deadly end to a relationship that no longer served his needs? Authorities in Chicago have since reopened the case, but so far, no new charges have been filed. Or was this simply a tale of greed, betrayal, and a love story that was doomed from the start? A man who saw an opportunity, a wealthy, successful woman with everything to offer, and took what he could before ensuring she wouldn't live to regret it. Now we turn to you. What do you think? Was justice truly served? Or is there more to this case than meets the eye? Let us know in the comments. And if you love true crime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because here at True Crime Cinema, the truth is always darker than fiction.